Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Benjamin Greeley, a student and entrepreneur at Cornell University. Good afternoon, Benjamin.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And you prefer Ben or Benjamin?
Um, Ben works.
All right, cool. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
So I graduated high school and I was all set to go to college. And when I went to Cornell, everything was going smoothly, but then the disaster struck. I got hit by a car and I was sent home, and I got a brain injury and I was on medical leave, and I didn't want to take a chance with the Cornell tuition returning before I had recovered mentally. So I started attending community college, where I would take business courses, and I did as much self-education in entrepreneurship as possible. And very recently, I got together with a couple Asian mates, and we decided to go the entrepreneurial route. I've had work experience at startups. I had an internship at a startup here in Philadelphia. It was remote, and I was able to give them a connection to a entrepreneur who was funded by Mark Cuban, and I was able to connect them to a classmate of mine who had been a songwriter for Taylor Swift, and I was able to get them featured in Forbes. So nothing to sniff at. Mm-hmm. And that was just an internship. I didn't get paid for any of that. And that was all remote. I barely interacted with them for the most part. It was only on Slack that I communicated with any of the people there. But I realized that I would get out of it what I put into it. And what they were having me doing was pretty menial stuff. I just had to find emails for people for them to contact. Nothing particularly, nothing that would give me a lot of experience for the long run. So I went the extra mile. And other than that, I've done odd jobs, and I've been trying to, before everything shut down, I was trying to get an initiative at the community college I'm at started to train my classmates there blue collar skills such as plumbing and carpentry and all that, so that they could work on, I like to use the word gentrifying, but simply renovating homes and houses here in the city so that the neighborhoods improve and property values improve, and so that the increasing cost of living here in the city doesn't leave them behind. And I was able to find an adjunct professor at the community college who had started a similar initiative. And before all this happened, everything was progressing towards, we were going to get a club started, and that club would act as the segue from being a student on a white-collar degree route to being trained as sort of ancillary, auxiliarily, in the blue-collar sort of line of employment as well. And unfortunately, that's on the back burner for the moment. Mm-hmm. But other than that, the project we're working on is a platform for anything that uses a in-person physical studio for scheduling and payments and arranging classes for dance studios, yoga studios, etc. And what we're hoping will be the kicker, the key, what we'll be bringing to the table, especially would be this, I wouldn't say proprietary, but software, computer vision, body recognition, movement tracking, sort of software that my friend had done research on for his senior thesis, and we're hoping that will really make this stand out.
Great. So, what do you think is the future of remote employment? And I know you're new to it, but what do you think could be done differently to make it more effective?
Well, I'm excited about the implications and the effect that remote employment will have on the work-life balance discussion. It will really blur the line between work and recreation, and it's going to force people to reevaluate what their employment is, what each of their jobs actually is, because they're going to realize that they're going to be working essentially nonstop. They're not going to have a clear demarcation between when their workday ends and begins. And they may as well have their careers align with their passions and their hobbies, because it will be difficult to divvy up time for one versus the other. And I believe that remote employment is really going to draw a line between companies that have a culture and mission that attract and retain devoted employees, and those that don't. Companies that don't have enthusiastic, self-motivated employees are going to be weeded out via the Darwinistic mechanisms of capitalism. And that's a good thing. Gary Vaynerchuk frequently counsels CEOs and hiring managers on culture fit. He tells them not to hire competent people if they're not a good fit, because he has seen firsthand how toxicity can kill a company. And I don't disagree with him if we're talking about physical, sort of intimate workplaces. But remote employment does away with that problem. And it also potentially does away with the problem of Dunbar's number, namely that once a company exceeds 150 people, its corporate structures begin breaking down. And with remote employment, a company of 300 employees, let's say, can keep half its employees at a physical location while the other half work remotely, and then simply rotate people around. And this also prepares the company for situations like what we have now, where everyone has to work remotely. And I believe that the most important piece of the remote work equation is extensive internet coverage. And I suspect we will get that in the form of satellites. Extensive satellite internet coverage will be a boon for rural America and small towns that have struggled to retain a blue-collar workforce in the wake of industry evacuating the area. White-collar workers will be able to live in these towns where, first of all, it's easier to socially distance, but that's obviously a pertinent topic for right now. But they'll have time to participate in the local culture. The travel industry will benefit as remote employees realize that they can become digital nomads. And what we're seeing right now is that this shelter in place has been the ultimate, much needed kickstart for virtual reality. And finally, it's being used in various applications. And the virtual reality offers a whole other type of remote work. Remote work can go beyond simply work people do on computers outside of an office. If, say, I'm flying a drone or navigating a bomb defusal robot, as far as I'm concerned, that's remote work. And if we combine technologies like voice interfaces like Siri or Alexa, the virtual reality, Internet of Things, and robotics, we could even allow blue-collar workers to work remotely. currently, there's a thing called haptic gloves, where you put these gloves on and it allows the computer to recognize your hands in virtual reality space. And, you know, they have applications beyond gaming. They would allow underwater welders. It's a very dangerous job, underwater welding. They could allow underwater welders to work remotely. Maybe even line cooks. So if we expand our definition of remote work, there's a whole lot of possibility. I'm sorry, that was a ramble.
That's okay. No, that was it. Very interesting. So, and that leads me into my next question, which is really about the technology behind your current startup, which is around the motion detection. There's two types of motion detection. I went from my house to the store. Are you talking about that? Or are you talking more about my body went from here to here?
It would be similar to what Snapchat currently does with people's faces.
Okay.
Similar to the Microsoft Kinect.
Mm-hmm.
It would simply be on devices such as our phones, because we don't expect people to buy Microsoft Kinects for their dance studios.
Mm-hmm. But is it, because I'm trying to understand the application, is it more like use to dance? Would a teacher be able to instruct a student from anywhere in the world, you know, with this technology, say you're off by, you know, your plie is not quite right, as an example?
We're hoping so. We're hoping we can offer that sort of accuracy. I suspect that initially it will probably be not particularly useful until it starts becoming more rigorous, and we train it on
Mm-hmm.
people's data, the people actually using it, and it starts training itself.
Yeah, and it has a lot of applications in the elite athlete realm, because I mean, think about it. That is such a science now. So, and they've already started to do some of that with computers. But if you can do it remotely, that's a whole different ballgame. So,
absolutely.
So the current pandemic has forced a lot of companies to go remote. It sounds like you've been remote, you know, from day one. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been remote from day one because we've got somebody in California, and my friends are scattered across Philadelphia. So,
and has did the pandemic propose any new challenges or roadblocks that you didn't anticipate?
Well, it caused us to pivot to this idea in the first place.
Oh, okay. Well,
because it was the reason for the former idea sort of falling flat, and you know, you just have to roll with the punch.
Yeah. So, yes, there's companies like Gaper, who I work for, that help startups build and scale products. Do you think that's something you would consider in the future, like having remote developers in another part of the world? Do you think that will be an important thing?
Well, the using remote work is, first of all, the deal with time zones has been an interesting one, because my friend in California, you know, if I'm contacting him, you know, it's 3 hours earlier, just like it is with you and I. So that's it's not necessarily the end, but it's certainly inconvenience, especially when we're dealing with people in Europe. Mm-hmm. We tried somebody in Australia once, and it was impossible to coordinate. But development agencies like Gaper are fantastic. I see that they offer the entrepreneurial community several things. They, first of all, are a great beginning place for computer science majors to have internships. So they offer a sort of, they foster developers and they kickstart their careers. And when you get investment in a company or an idea, they offer a quick way of getting something built. The problem that I see is that when people have no money, but they do have an idea and they have no skill in building their own idea, development agencies that I went to starting out 2 years ago now, they weren't willing to give me any sort of discounts, or they weren't willing to help me build out stuff. I guess I contacted people who were really busy, but I feel like there's a golden opportunity for dev agencies to offer these fledgling idea stage entrepreneurs pre-written code, and just be like, all right, so you have an idea? Well, we can whip up something like this, but you have to prove that your idea is worthwhile. But as far as remote work and development agencies is concerned, honestly, if you're near a city or you're in a city, I don't see the need to use something remote.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of dev agencies around you, likely.
Mm-hmm. This is true. So, but the big difference is the cost difference. So, which entrepreneurs and startups do definitely have to deal with.
Well, when I posted we posted our projects on Upwork, and we certainly were given offers by people in Ukraine and people in India and people in Southeast Asia, and we didn't want to take that chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's not for everybody. I agree. So, anyway, it's been great talking to you today. I wish you luck.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully you will graduate soon. Hopefully they get this all sorted out for you. And you are a senior, right?
I would be, yes.
Yes. All right. Well, have a great day.
Are we going to talk to your friend